Former Limpopo ANC leaders Danny Msiza and Kabelo Matsepe have succeeded in their bid for their trial to be separated from that of their co-accused in the VBS case.
On March 12, 2021, just before sunrise, when the streets were still quiet, a convoy of unmarked vehicles slowly rolled up to Danny Msiza's lavish home. Inside, the man once known as Limpopo's most powerful political figure was still asleep, completely unaware that his world was about to change forever. With precision and calm determination, the armed men stepped out of the vehicles and moved in. There were no loud bangs, no sirens, just the sound of boots on the pavement and the subtle creak of the front gate being pushed open. Seconds later, the doorbell rang. That was all it took. A groggy Msiza appeared at the door, still half asleep, and from that moment on, his entire empire came crashing down. This is the story of how South Africa's biggest heist boss met his end. Born in the 1960s in Limpopo, Danny Msiza came from humble beginnings. Raised in a rural village where poverty was rampant, he grew up witnessing the harsh realities of apartheid. Like many young black South Africans at the time, he was exposed to the brutality of the regime and the systemic oppression that suffocated any hopes of a better future for his people. But Msiza was not one to sit quietly. By the 1980s, as the anti-apartheid struggle gained momentum, he found his voice. He became the inaugural president of the Mototema Youth Congress, a bold and fearless anti-apartheid organization operating in the Transvaal region. This was no easy task. Being the leader of such a movement meant painting a target on his back. The apartheid government was notorious for cracking down on activists, detaining, torturing, and even killing those who dared to rise against the system. Still, Msiza pushed forward. He organized protests, mobilized young people, and became a respected voice within the movement. But words were not enough. The fight for freedom needed more than speeches and placards. It needed men and women who were willing to take up arms. In 1984, Msiza made a life-changing decision. He was recruited into Umkhonto we Sizwe, MK, the armed wing of the ANC. This was the big league, the dangerous world of guerrilla warfare, sabotage missions, and underground operations. It was a calling reserved only for those who had the courage to risk everything for their people. Once recruited, Msiza was sent into exile. Like many MK soldiers, he found himself in countries like Angola, Mozambique, and Tanzania, where the ANC operated military camps. There, he underwent intense military training, learning everything from handling weapons to mastering the art of survival. In exile, he built strong connections with other freedom fighters, relationships that would serve him well in the years to come. He became known for his discipline, his strategic thinking, and his ability to navigate the complex world of liberation politics. By 1992, the apartheid regime was crumbling. The ANC was unbanned, political prisoners were being released, and South Africa was on the brink of change. Msiza returned home a seasoned fighter, ready to help rebuild the country he had once fought to liberate. He wasted no time. Msiza threw himself into ANC structures in Sekhukhune, Limpopo. He quickly rose through the ranks, gaining a reputation as a skilled organizer and a shrewd political operator. His experiences in exile gave him a unique edge, and his network of comrades opened doors others could only dream of. But Msiza was not content with politics alone. Like many of his generation, he understood that in the new South Africa, real power came from controlling both political and economic structures. And so, he pivoted to business. The post-apartheid era brought with it black economic empowerment, a policy designed to redress the economic injustices of the past by giving black South Africans a stake in the economy. For many former freedom fighters, this was a golden ticket. Msiza was no exception. He established business interests in mining, telecommunications, and construction. These were lucrative industries, often driven by government contracts and political connections. Msiza knew how to play the game. His political influence ensured that tenders and deals flowed his way, turning him into a wealthy man. Soon, Msiza owned multiple luxury cars and properties. He also had his hands in various business ventures. Msiza was the ultimate power broker, a man who could move millions with a single phone call, a kingmaker within Limpopo politics. However, with power came temptation, and Msiza, like many of his peers, could not resist. He used his political power and influence to orchestrate one of South Africa's biggest heists. At the center of it all was VBS Mutual Bank, a small, little-known financial institution with a history rooted in the apartheid era. Originally founded in 1982, VBS was created to serve black clients at a time when most banks in the country refused them basic financial services. For years, VBS quietly served its niche market, largely flying under the radar. For years, VBS operated quietly until it shot to national attention in 2016, when it offered former President Jacob Zuma a controversial loan to settle his Nkandla homestead debt. That move suddenly gave VBS the recognition it needed. Flush with political connections, the bank started aggressively targeting municipalities and public entities, promising them outrageously high returns if they deposited public funds with VBS. But behind the scenes, a massive looting scheme was unfolding. Between 2016 and 2018, VBS became a piggy bank for politicians, businessmen, and bank executives. Municipalities across Limpopo, Northwest, and Gauteng were persuaded to deposit millions of rands, public money meant for service delivery, into VBS. Many of these municipalities were already cash-strapped, but the promise of quick profits was too tempting. However, everything seemed fine until March 2018, when the South African Reserve Bank placed VBS Mutual Bank under curatorship after uncovering billions of rands unaccounted for. It didn't take long before panic set in. Ordinary South Africans, funeral societies, and even municipalities that had trusted the bank with their money soon realized it was all gone. An investigation was quickly launched, but for months, the true scale of the corruption remained hidden, until October 2018. That's when advocate Terry Motau released his explosive forensic report titled The Great Bank Heist, commissioned by the South African Reserve Bank. The report laid out, in damning detail, how R2 billion was siphoned from VBS Mutual Bank through a complex web of fraudulent transactions, bribes, and kickbacks. It exposed how politicians, bank executives, and well-connected businessmen had turned the bank into their personal cash machine. Terry Motau's report officially implicated 53 individuals and entities, and right at the center of this elaborate scheme, according to the findings, was none other than Danny Msiza. Msiza, as the ANC provincial treasurer in Limpopo, had direct access to mayors, municipal managers, and senior government officials. The report alleged that he acted as the middleman between VBS executives and these municipalities. His job was simple, but illegal: convince or pressure municipalities to deposit large sums of public money into VBS, even though doing so was a direct violation of the Municipal Finance Management Act, MFMA, which prohibited municipalities from depositing funds into mutual banks. For every successful deposit secured, VBS executives rewarded Msiza and his network handsomely. These rewards allegedly came in the form of cash payments, lucrative business deals, or commissions funneled through third-party companies. Msiza was deeply embedded in this web of corruption, using his political muscle to ensure a continuous flow of municipal funds into the bank. Under his influence, at least 15 municipalities from Limpopo, Northwest, and Gauteng deposited over R1 billion of public money into VBS. These were funds meant for critical services like water, electricity, and infrastructure development, but instead they were swallowed into the black hole of fraud. One VBS executive, Fofi Mukodobwane, gave damning testimony to investigators, claiming that Danny Msiza was the fixer. He made sure the right people complied and that the cash kept flowing. According to Mukodobwane, Msiza orchestrated meetings, gave instructions, and even decided who got paid from the stolen funds. Several municipalities under Msiza's political sphere of influence lost hundreds of millions in this scheme. Limpopo, Msiza's backyard, was the hardest hit. When Msiza's name appeared in the report, the backlash was immediate. The ANC, under growing public pressure, forced him to step aside in December 2018 from his role as provincial treasurer. For a man used to power, this was a humiliating moment. Msiza had spent decades building his influence within the ANC, rising through the ranks as a trusted figure in Limpopo politics. But now, he was a liability. The party, eager to distance itself from the scandal, had no choice but to sideline him. But Msiza was not a man who went down easily. Over the next 2 years, he launched a relentless fight to clear his name. He took the battle to court, arguing that the Motau report had dragged him through the mud without affording him due process. With a high-powered legal team behind him, Msiza worked tirelessly to discredit the findings and suppress the report's circulation. And then, in September 2020, he pulled off what many thought impossible. He clawed his way back. The ANC's National Executive Committee, caught between internal factions and legal technicalities, ruled that Msiza could return to his post. After all, no criminal charges had been filed, at least not yet. It was a lifeline, a rare second chance in the cutthroat world of politics. But deep down, everyone knew it was only temporary. The walls were still closing in. For nearly 3 years, investigators quietly built their case. They sifted through bank records, traced the flow of stolen money, and persuaded insiders to flip. Piece by piece, the puzzle came together, until finally, in March 2021, the inevitable happened. Msiza, along with several other high-profile figures, was officially indicted. The charges were damning: racketeering, fraud, theft, and money laundering, all linked to the grand scheme that had bled VBS Mutual Bank dry. Facing the possibility of decades behind bars, Msiza maintained his innocence, insisting he was being targeted unfairly. He hired some of the best legal minds in the country, hoping to delay, challenge, and ultimately escape conviction. Then came July 2024, and Msiza made his boldest move yet. In a calculated gamble, he petitioned the court to separate his trial from the others. Staying lumped in with the rest of the accused meant facing the full weight of damning evidence collected against them all. But standing alone, Msiza believed he had a fighting chance to clear his name. To the shock of many, the court granted his request. For a moment, it seemed like Msiza had outmaneuvered his fate once again. His trial would move faster, unshackled from the complicated mess surrounding his co-accused. And maybe, just maybe, he could still walk away free. But no matter how skilled the lawyers are or how clever the strategy is, the truth has a way of clawing its way to the surface. And for Danny Msiza, that truth was never going away. One by one, the people who had once stood by his side turned their backs. Even the ANC, a party known for protecting its own, couldn't save him this time. Msiza was left alone. No allies, no power, just a fallen king watching his kingdom turn to dust. Though the case is still ongoing, it doesn't really matter whether the court finds him guilty or not. His fate was sealed long before he ever stepped into the courtroom. Msiza's story will never be remembered as one of political success or power, but as a man who flew too high, got too greedy, and watched everything he built crumble right in front of him.